Alright, hello everybody, this is Nando, IV Movies. You know me, I make a lot of videos about pitches for movies and fan casting, and every so often, some sort of actor will make some comment. They'll say, hey, I might be in a DC movie, or I'd like to play one of those Marvel heroes, and everybody will get really excited. I usually will make a little video commenting on it, or maybe just put out a tweet, because, you know, I've been thinking about this for a while, I know who a lot of these guys are, and sometimes it lines up with something I've already talked about in one of my other videos. But this time, I want to do something different. I want to try something a little different, but similar. After Giancarlo Esposito said that he was talking to James Gunn about the possibility of starring in a DC movie before the strike began, a lot of people started saying who they thought he might be playing. He's a very popular actor. He's been in plenty of fan casts. I've talked about him before. He's very good. So what I decided to do is I put a tweet out that said, all right, I'm going to make a new kind of Nando cut video. I want your suggestions for who you think Giancarlo could play. Put them in the comments and I'll talk about some of them in a video. And I got so many, and what I'm gonna do is just go through some of these comments. Not every single one, I'm sure I'll miss a bunch of them, but this is like a kind of, and some of them repeat. I appreciate everybody that replied. I got a lot of replies, a lot of interesting characters, some that I hadn't thought of really, some that I, have thought of, a couple, came up a lot, so that's something. Like, those are characters we have to think about. But this is fun, so we're gonna do this, we're gonna see how it goes. Maybe this will be a cool thing we do every single time, and I have no reason, like, I don't know why it has organized them in this way, but I'm just gonna go down the list, and if I don't get to yours, I apologize. But all right, let's start. Gio is here. Considering this is something Gunn is developing, then it has to be someone obscure like Deadman. Could he be Deadman? Yeah, I think he could. I don't think it's super likely. I do think I talked about Deadman in my who should James Gunn's friends play in the DCU. Like, I think Deadman is a character that James Gunn would like. He's like, kind of weird, horror adjacent. He fits in Justice League Dark with Swamp Thing, and I do think he's going to explore that pocket of the universe pretty heavily, especially because of the Gods and Monsters theme of Chapter 1. I don't think there's too many things specific about Boston. I think his name's Boston Brand, but this isn't like, Static Shock, where if you cast like a white guy, it'd be like, okay, well, you can't do that. I don't think there's too much of that with Boston. So I think you could get away with like someone of any age, someone of any ethnicity. You maybe could even switch the gender. I think that's like not that important in this situation, is what I'm saying. So sorry, I just got rid of the thing. But so there you go. First one, I'm gonna say hard maybe, and another one here. This is from Wade in the Wings. Good friend of the channel, says gotta be Dr. Doom, right? I think that's silly. That's a joke. Obviously, it's gonna be Julian McCullough from NITPICKING. I read that in an article 20 years ago, so I'm pretty sure he's gonna be Dr. Doom. Let's see, we've got Mega Crash Hog says, for a villain, I think he'd be a great pick for Atrocitus. For a hero, he's a bit older than I'd like for this character, but he could certainly bring a lot of gravitas to the question. Okay, let's take those one at a time. Atrocitus, love it. I think Atrocitus as like actually, I don't know if I love Atrocitus. If you were looking at Green Lantern villains, I think people brought up Sinestro will probably hit him on this list. I actually think that's kind of closer to what I would expect from what Giancarlo can do, because he is that kind of, he can do angry, but it is more of that simmering kind of like, he gets that line where he says like some line to the effect of like outbursts are a white man's game or something like that, where he's kind of talking about like how he is angry, but his power is that he's able to kind of control it more or less. I don't think that's how I envision Atrocitus, right? Like Atrocitus is almost like, Thor, or he's a big, bold figure who leads by rage and strength. And, I'm not a humongous Green Lantern fan, but that is what I know about the character more or less. Also, Atrocitus is jacked, so we're going to run into a lot of characters here who are traditionally jacked. I think some of them you can get away with having an average, height. I think he's like 5'8", not in incredible J.K. Simmons shape, and in his 60s, I think he's about 60 now. You can have like an averagely built man play that part, and it doesn't completely ruin the character or anything like that. However, there's certain roles where I'm like, oh, you actually do want a big guy playing that role, and maybe you could do CGI, but like, I don't think this is the place for it. So that's Atrocitus. The question, I think the question is cool. I think the question is a character who James Gunn likes, will like, and like will show up in one of these soon. My only thing with the question is he feels a little old for the question. I guess there's two questions though. There probably are more than two, but like you could have him be question one, the older question, then you have Renee Montoya come in and become the question after that, and then like he can be the mentor or something. You can have that like relationship. I don't hate it. I actually think he'd be good because I do think one of Giancarlo's strengths, he has a lot of charisma. He could do, I'm assuming he could do a very good dramatic monologue about like how Lex Luthor's pulling all the strings, whatever. It would be interesting. I think he could do it. It's not my favorite character for him. I would say this one is like more plausible than some of the other ones we've seen so far. Oh, this one's good. We got Nick here. Amern1K on Twitter says, here's a wild one. His voice is iconic. What if he was Martin Stein? Imagine him coaching a young Ronnie Raymond in an origin film, or even just having him around before the accident. Yeah, I don't mind that. I think one of the things that we can do with Giancarlo is play him as a mentor, and that would be fun. Like, I don't think you can't have him just be kind of his own guy, but I do think a 60-year-old man in a superhero movie, that's very frequently the role you get. Now, also, there are rumors, or not rumors, but he's talked about this in interviews. Giancarlo says he gets typecast as villains a lot because of Gus from Breaking Bad, and then the character he plays in Mandalorian, whose name I've already forget, Moff Gideon, and then obviously the guy from The Boys, Stan Edgar. So like, he's very good at playing a villain, and he could be very serious and do a really cool monologue and stuff like that. But I do think he has said he wants to play a hero or a good guy or something a little different, something against type. I think Martin Stein could do it. He's very smart. He could do the professor kind of thing. If you don't remember, Martin Stein is one half of the Firestorm. Like, the two guys kind of merge their personalities to be, it's kind of like a, God, what is it like? There's not a lot of other heroes that do what Firestorm does, where you take two guys, they smush into one guy, and then that guy has superpowers, and they like argue while they're in their head. It's kind of like what Shazam used to be like, although that's not really what that is, because he's transforming, and that's what Captain Marvel is too, with, I don't know. Either way, I think that could work. Victor Garber played him on the show. I think they can have similar vibes, so I don't hate that. Oh, you know what? How about this? This was from Freaka Jeebas. Says, obviously Jason Todd. JK, that was the first character I saw when I looked at my comics. My real answer is, and then they put a picture of Brainiac. I like Brainiac. I think Brainiac's a really good pick. Like I just said, he doesn't want to do villains anymore, but also when that dump truck full of money pulls up to your house, everything changes. And like, I think he could get a lot of money. If he wanted to be Brainiac, he would be like the Thanos of this universe for a while. Like, he could be the villain in Supergirl and Superman and maybe Authority and maybe Lanterns, and then everything kind of comes together and he's the big bad. So like, that will be a big dump truck full of money. Also, Brainiac is like an interesting role. He is, I would say, not like super different from what Stan Edgar or Moff Gideon is doing, but I do think it's such an important role. It's so iconic that I do think if you wanted to say like, we need someone who's really good for this. I know, Giancarlo, you want to play, you know, Professor X or a good guy or something like that, but do this one bad guy for us. He'll be under prosthetics or like CGI or whatever, and then you could do whatever you want after that. Like, I don't know, I could see it. I think he'd be great at it. This is Fizbrins Forever DM says, I want him to play against type. No more suave, quietly intense men. Get him in the Condiment King outfit. Hell yeah, I think that's great. I think that would be awesome if they gave him a really, really silly role and he did nothing with it. Like, not did nothing. He had a great performance, but like, he wasn't the main villain or main hero. Trayvon says, Giancarlo is great, but I think he needs a supporting role. Maybe he's this version of Commissioner Gordon. Like, a great way to bring back Leslie Grace as Batgirl. He plays wise well, carries strong dialogue, and could strike a well-balanced addition to the cast. Trayvon. Yeah, I think he could be a good Jim Gordon. I think a lot of Batman adjacent characters have come up in this list. We'll talk about, I'll go through some of them now. Jim Gordon. So my only thing with Jim Gordon is, this is just me, and this is just based on those villains that I mentioned. He is traditional. Giancarlo Esposito is an actor who seems to play characters that have it together, right? That are like pretty classy and, you know, dress in suits, or in Gus's case, but like he's like a manager and he's like this kingpin. But I guess the reason that guys like J.K. Simmons or the guy who's playing him now, whose name I cannot remember, Jeffrey Wright, work for me as Gordons is because they do feel like they are not the smartest man in that room, and it is not like killing them, but like they just can't get a handle on things. I do think Giancarlo Esposito does feel like he kind of has to be the smartest man in the rooms that he's in, except for that one guy who's like incredible. But like, I don't love it. I don't hate it. I've heard Lucius Fox come up, the character that Morgan Freeman played in the Batman like Begins and all that. You know, maybe. I think it's hard to not look at like an older black man and then look at a slate that has a Batman movie in it and not say, oh, that guy could be Lucius Fox. Like, I don't think he's not Lucius, and if he wanted that role, that would be fine, I guess. I also don't think we need a Lucius Fox. Like, I don't think that's a character who it's like, oh, that'll definitely be in this. I think Batman has had many different people that have worked on his suits and stuff like that. I think they could skip directly to Luke Fox and just have him be Batman's new tech kid that's like working in Wayne Enterprises and have him build the Batwing suit. I don't know. Overall, I think he could be a good Luke Fox or Lucas Fox. Lucius, Jesus. He'd be a weird Luke Fox because he's too old. And then the other one that came up a couple of times was Alfred, which I'd love if he was British, but he's not British, so I don't think we could do it. Like, I think that is the one rule of Alfred is he has to be British. Now, they've taken a lot of our Supermen, those British actors, and, you know, obviously now we have an American from Philadelphia, no less, in our Superman role, but like with, you know, Henry Cavill and probably others I can't remember. You know, a lot of our great American icons have been played by British people, so maybe we owe this to them to steal away Alfred. I don't know. I do think he would be a good Alfred because I do think he's got a lot of sass and a lot of snark, and that's what I love from an Alfred. But yeah, I don't know. All right, let's see. Okay, Dev Part 2 says Jay Garrick, Lex Luthor, Alfred, Mr. Freeze. Let's go by this one by one. Alfred, we did that already. Lex Luthor, I don't think he's the Luthor we'll get for this universe. Two reasons. One, I think he's too old. I think if we had an older Superman, I do think they'll be somewhat contemporary in age, just based on other rumors we've heard about what they're casting. And that being said, I think he'd be a good Luthor. Obviously, he's a good Luthor on Harley Quinn, but it's not what I would want. I just don't think, especially after Stan Edgar, I don't think there's much value in having him do that again. So Luthor, Alfred, Mr. Freeze. Yes, he'd be a really good Mr. Freeze. Like, I don't know what they're going to do with this Batman movie, but like if they picked him for Mr. Freeze and made Mr. Freeze the main villain, that could rule. I do think it's the one role that he always gets fan casted in stuff like this. And like, I talked about this in my Batman pitch, but that's because he's good at it. Like the same reason Benedict Cumberbatch got fan casted as Dr. Strangelove, because he's got the, you know, he's got the juice. And then last one here was Jay Garrick. Sure, I think there's a couple of legacy heroes like that. Jay Garrick, Alan Scott, other members of the JSA that he could play. I don't know too much, honestly, about Jay Garrick and like what we need for that besides someone who's got it relatively together. That's kind of my general vibe of a Flash. Is besides Wally kind of recently, but like the idea that Barry is generally pretty competent. I kind of see that in Jay as well. I could be way off. Let's see who else has one that's just got one. I love it when people send one. When you do a bunch of them, it's hard to focus. Oh, how about this one? Justin Bellman. All right, a lot of great suggestions for this one, but Justin, you got the one. I would love to see him as John, Martian Manhunter. So yes, John Jones was the one that I got overwhelmingly the most responses for. I like it a lot. I think he could do a fantastic voice for John. John has that somewhat robotic delivery that reminds you of someone like Vision. He is more human, and I think Giancarlo can do that. I also think John is very frequently, if not explicitly black, he is coded as black. So I do think when you're considering who you cast as Martian Manhunter, that's a big part of it. And I think, you know, Giancarlo Esposito, from what I understand, I think his father is Italian, and I think his mother is African American. I'm not positive about that, but it's something like that. So I think that would help. My only thing with Martian Manhunter is he's not jacked, and he's also not big. I think we can get away with CGI mostly and have his civilian identity be Giancarlo Esposito with like a cap on, or, you know, like a fedora. And yeah, and I also think if I were James Gunn, putting Martian Manhunter in one of these would be smart, because he has not, outside of the one teeny tiny scene in the Snyder Cut and the one where he's secretly Lois Lane or Martha Kent or whatever, we haven't had him on screen. So like the same way that maybe we have to wait a little bit to kind of get people off the Wonder Woman and Aquaman and some of these other characters that have somewhat iconic performances attached to them. Like Martian Manhunter, you could start fresh, throw him in the universe. He's a very good character. You bounce off characters like Blue Beetle, who he's in JSA with, Batman, who's in Justice League with. I don't think this is the most likely pick here. He's also a good guy, which is what Giancarlo wants. So I'm not going to say I think it's a good pick in terms of like the most likely. I think it's a great pick for casting. Like if we got that, we're lucky, and I think you do a good job with it. And I'd like to see more Martian Manhunter on the in these movies. Okay, Patricio F. Mendoza suggested a character named, I do not know this guy, he's Brainiac 2, also known as Vril Dox, and he is a Lobo adjacent character. I just want to say that's a cool deep cut, and looking at this guy, it does seem like he's, like they said, Vril Dox wanted to play the straight man to whoever they cast as Lobo, whoever that could be. And I think that's a good, like, that's a role he could play. Kind of fun. But yeah, I don't really know who that is. Good pick though. Like it's an interesting one. Ooh, how about this? Ed Cruz, Shade, but the good guy version. Yeah, he'd be a great Shade, actually. Like, especially when you look at the frame and like his posture. Like the thing with Martian Manhunter is he just, like, Martian Manhunter is super jacked, because all of them are. But like Shade is one of the characters who's specifically designed as kind of a slimmer dude. God, I don't know where exactly he came from, if he was a JSA villain or a Flash villain or whatever, but he travels in those circles. And yeah, and he's been a good guy, I believe. I could see it. I could totally see it. We got Phil with the 1L. Said, gonna throw Toyman in the ring. A Superman villain I think could be a lot of fun to play with, no pun intended, in live action. Yeah, I think that'd be good. I could see him as Toyman. I think the Toyman is one of those characters you can do a million different things with. Like the one on Smallville was so different from the one on the Justice League cartoon. The one in the Justice League cartoon, for people that don't remember, was like a little guy with a big porcelain head and like a little sweater vest and stuff. And then I want to say on Supergirl, he was like a serial killer or something. All it is he has to have little toys, weird little toys that are also bombs or whatever. But like anyone could play him as long as they seem like a genius. So yeah, I think that's fun. I think putting him in one of the Superman, like I don't know what Legacy's going for, but if Legacy wants a Superman villain for him to mess up in the beginning of the movie, that would be a good one. Let's see what else we got here. Ooh, all right. Nick Grayson says the Spectre, any version. Look, Deadman is great, but the Spectre has a better suite of powers, no old-timey circus baggage, and a more meaningful place in the DCU. This could easily be the Crow-style revenge movie with a ton of hero and villain cameos. Yeah, you know what? I think Spectre, I will say the other character that comes up, let me find somebody so I can give somebody credit for this. United Way mentioned him here. Metron is another one. He could play one of these kind of ethereal space god type characters. I actually think Metron would be great. For people that don't know, he is one of the new gods, I believe. He's the one that sits in the chair. A lot of people thought Harrison Wells was him the first season of Flash because he sat in a chair a lot. Not that anybody in a wheelchair is Metron, but just the way that it was like, oh, there's something going on. Who is he? It just seemed like that might be the character. He played a pretty big role in the Justice League animated series. He is also somewhat like kind of calculating and detached in the same way that I think Giancarlo can, like, he can play that role. Yeah, I don't hate it. Spectre is kind of the same. I would say Spectre would have a little bit more personality, but the story, I think, like the role he would play in the story would be similar. So yeah, I like that. Owen Lars 2 said Dr. Midnight. Again, there are a lot of JSA guys who I think would be great. A lot of Jay Garrick's in here. I don't know what it is. I got to look up more on Jay Garrick. This is a good one. Dan the Photo Man. He even had a picture. Oh, this is good. It says, this is an OC I came up with. His name is Gus Fring, and he runs a fast food enterprise with restaurants all around America. However, he hides a dark secret. He's using this as a cover for his main job as the head of a giant meth-producing organization, Thoughts. And then he has a picture, and it looks very real, so this must be AI. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I think he could be like a Superman villain, too. And like this could be one of those stories where like Superman like gets involved with the common man and kind of gets back to his roots and like busts up some meth labs or something. Sure, that'd be cool. Let's see what else we got here. We haven't seen the one that I said yet. I did say one. So originally, here's what I said. Originally, I was like, oh, just some villain, right? Some sort of like cold and calculating, like Mr. Freeze or Lex Luthor or whatever. I also fan casted him in the Batman video as Hugo Strange, which I think he would crush. I also said Gorilla Grodd, which is tough because on one hand, people don't like it when, and I understand why, like African American people or just black people in general end up doing the voices or playing some sort of, ape creature like that. There's a lot of bad stuff associated with that. On the other hand, if we're casting a Gorilla Grodd, I think it'd be, if they cast him, I would be like, listen, I get why people don't love it, but I do think he'll do a good job. People said the same thing about Detective Chimp. I think that is more kind of you need an actor in there who would not seem like a character, like the voice coming out of a little chimp guy. And like, Giancarlo Esposito is very smart like, kind of guy. Like Michael Caine would also work in that, I guess. I don't know too much about Detective Chimp, but yeah, I know that both those characters people had like reservations on, and I understand that. But on the other hand, I also understand why people might want him in that role. So I said that, and then I was like, those guys are fun. And then the next thing I did was look up other sorts of things, characters that are older in the DC comics. And then I looked up characters that are Italian, and I found Zatara, and I was like, oh my God, yes, I want Zatara so badly in this, because for people that don't know, he was an older DC character who was like a magician type who just like did magic and with like a hat, like stage magician. They created the character of, and I don't know exactly how this played out, but Zatanna, who is like the magical heroine in the Justice League and Justice League Dark and all those groups, is his daughter, Zatanna Zatara. And she is cool and like is a great main character that a lot of people like and really want to see show up in this. I think there is not a chance we get through this chapter 1 of Gods and Monsters without a Zatanna. It's another one of those characters that like James Gunn would just love. And I think it's a character that, again, high profile, never been in a movie before. So like lots of opportunity. I will say it is nice too, because he is Italian. Giancarlo, his father is Italian. So like Zatanna, I don't think needs to sound Italian. Like I believe in the comics, she's mostly raised in America, or if she's not, I don't think she traditionally has an accent. Not in the cartoons, at least. And I've read a lot of Zatanna comics because I think they're fun. There's a good it's something similar to kind of Booster Gold, where like I think she would make a great series because it is that kind of light, like, oh, I'm a stage magician. Oh, look, it's the devil. I'll go kill the devil. Oh, I got a magic show. Like stuff like that. Paul Dini used to love to write her. Apparently, I think Paul Dini, I always get this wrong if it's Dini or Tim. One of them has a wife that is a stage magician who looks a lot like Zatanna. So that's kind of funny. But the idea of bringing her in say Brave and the Bold, because like her and Batman have history, and then we can learn that Zatara, her father, trained Batman in magic or something. I love that. Also, he has been Dr. Fate before, and if you wanted to do a slightly different Dr. Fate than we just did, have Zatara be Dr. Fate, like that would give him a big role and be something kind of dramatic for him to do. I don't know, I just like it. I think he's in the right age range. If we picked him, then we're looking at now 30-ish-year-old Black women to play Zatanna, and like we got some great options there. Like this could be Keke Palmer role, Zazie Beetz, Janelle Monáe. Like I don't know. I think there is the same way with Booster Gold. There is just a wealth of like everybody is like, man, if that becomes a show, it's so cool, and there's so many fun actors that would love to get that role. It'd be like a Deadpool kind of thing. I think Zatanna could be like that. Let's see what else we got. Let's see. I've seen a lot of these before. There are a lot of repeats, which means we got some answers that like a lot of people picked up on. And I think that's great. I wish I could find the person who said this, because there was at least one other that I wanted to touch on. Oh, okay, how about this one? My Damn Opinion said that gotta think outside the box. Etrigan the Demon / Jason Blood. Yes, I think he could do it. I think my thing with Etrigan is, I don't know, like, the energy Jason has is so weird because he's always like, oh God, I gotta do Etrigan stuff. I'm not excited about this. And it's not the energy I would say I currently associate with Giancarlo. That being said, I know he could do it. Another thing about Zatara is like, it's a good guy, but he is someone who gets to monologue and do these big presentations, but it's with stage magic. And I think we would be using Giancarlo's talents at villainy, but in this different direction that could be a lot of fun. Oh, here we go. Fanflippintastic says he'd be a perfect Red Tornado. Yeah, I agree. I think he could do that kind of vision, like robotic delivery thing. But if we don't want to drown his performance in CGI, Doc Magnus is a solid choice too. Yeah, from the Metal Men. He's got the same vibe as the leader of the Doom Patrol, except a little less evil, but like this father figure who creates these robots. That seems very possible to me. And again, I keep saying this, another character that I think would be on James Gunn's radar. And if he got to make a Metal Men show, I think he'd do it. They could have a very Guardian Z vibe. I think he likes these weird groupings of characters that are like these, difficult found families. So yeah, I could totally see that. There are so many here, and I'm going to do one more. Oh, Zara Luna real quick said, maybe do a voice for the Center. Yeah, because the Center people think might be, they may be leaning towards a New Frontier style Justice League movie with the Center being the bad guy. You could have him do like the voice of God coming from this you know, big alien ship. Yeah, I think that could work. Scenes of Perry White, Owlman, I like those. Jor-El, interesting, but I think it's definitely going to be that guy that's Peter Quill's grandmother. Ooh, okay. Aqua said, I have no effing clue why this character popped into my head when I think of Giancarlo Esposito in DCU. Gannett of Oa. So Gannett Ganthet, excuse me, is one of the Guardians, the guys who are in charge of the Green Lanterns. Yeah, totally. I think he could do that. I think we'll need Green Lantern bosses. So he'd be in the, you know, like the guy in the chair, like, damn it, John Stewart, you totaled 20 cars fighting Sinestro. Like, give me your ring now. Like, I think it could work. But yeah, I'm very excited about Giancarlo and DCU. Thank you, everybody who replied. Maybe I'll do another one of these next time someone else gets cast, because there were a lot of good answers here. But I think we went over most of the big ones. I'll try to do another one of these again next time there's a big casting thing. Until then, stay safe, enjoy the videos on the channel, and we'll see you guys around.